The tray is heavy. Not because of the champagne glasses, there are only 6 of them, but because of what I'm carrying underneath the weight of this moment, underneath the silk of this borrowed smile, underneath 43 minutes of waiting. She doesn't look at me when she says it. Marcus's mother, Diane, the woman who spent 3 Sundays in a row telling me I should consider a career in hospitality, snaps her fingers in my direction the way you'd snap them at a dog that wandered too close to the dinner table. Table 6 needs champagne. No eye contact. No name. Just a finger snap and the assumption that I will move. And I do move. I pick up the tray. I adjust the glasses so they don't clink. I square my shoulders and I walk toward table 6, past the ice sculpture of 2 intertwined rings that I paid for, past the floral arrangements I chose from the catalog while Marcus was in meetings, past 300 guests who are eating food I budgeted, in a venue I booked, at an engagement party that is, technically, mine. Steady hands. I learned a long time ago that the most dangerous thing you can do before a detonation is let your hands shake. In 43 minutes, this engagement wouldn't exist. But first, champagne for table 6. If you've ever been underestimated so completely that people stopped seeing you as a person and started seeing you as furniture, you already understand something about this story. Stay with me. Because it gets so much worse before it gets better. I move through the crowd and I feel it the way you feel weather changing, that shift in the air when you walk into a room and people look through you instead of at you. A woman in a red dress waves her hand without turning around, assuming I'm already coming toward her. A man in a navy suit reaches out and takes a glass from my tray without making eye contact, mid-sentence to his colleague. The salmon is a little dry, the woman in red says, still not looking at me. I'll let the kitchen know, I say. She's already turned away. I set the remaining glasses down at table 6 and I'm halfway back toward the service station when a hand touches my elbow. Excuse me. I turn. It's a woman I don't recognize, late 40s, kind eyes, champagne in her hand, looking at me with a slight tilt of her head, like she's trying to solve something. I'm sorry, she says, but, are you the bride? And the table goes quiet. Just slightly. Just enough that 3 or 4 people turn to look. I open my mouth. Oh, she likes to keep busy. Diane appears at my shoulder like she materialized from the air itself. She puts her hand on my arm, light, possessive, steering, and laughs the way you laugh at a child who's said something adorable and slightly embarrassing. Camille has always been very hands-on, Diane says, smiling at the kind-eyed woman. It's one of her best qualities. Very practical girl. The woman smiles uncertainly. Oh. That's sweet. Diane squeezes my arm once. It's not affection. It's instruction. And then she's gone, back into the crowd, laughing at something someone else has said, and I am left standing at the edge of table 6 with an empty tray and the word practical ringing in my ears like a slap. I smile at the kind-eyed woman. Enjoy the evening, I say. And I go back to work. Here's what they didn't know. I wasn't humiliated. I was watching. There's a version of this story where I confront Diane that first time she dismisses me in front of her friends. Where I pull Marcus aside and say, your mother just snapped her fingers at me like I was a golden retriever. Where I draw a line in the sand and stand behind it with my arms crossed. But I know something about lines in the sand. The tide always comes for them. And I had already chosen a different kind of line. One drawn in concrete. In ownership documents. In 70% of a company that Marcus has spent 18 months calling ours. I pick up a clean tray. I go back to work. The memory comes while I'm pouring champagne for a cluster of Marcus's college friends near the window. It surfaces the way memories do when you're doing something with your hands, uninvited, vivid, already half gone before you can catch it. His voice. 2.5 years ago, In the kitchen of the apartment I was renting alone, the apartment with the broken radiator I'd fixed myself and the bookshelf I'd built from a flat-pack kit on a Sunday afternoon. "I just need a small loan," he'd said. He was sitting across from me at the table, and he had a way of looking at me then that made me feel like I was the smartest person he'd ever met. "Just temporary. Until the capital comes through. You know how these early stages are." I did know. I'd spent 4 years working for someone else's startup before I understood the mechanics of it well enough to know I could do it better myself. I knew what early stages looked like. I knew how they smelled, like instant noodles and optimism and the faint metallic edge of risk. "How much?" I'd asked. He told me. I didn't flinch, even though the number was every dollar I had saved in 3 years of 18-hour days. I looked at him across the table, at the brightness in his eyes, at the way he was already seeing something I hadn't built yet. "Okay," I said. "But I want equity." He'd laughed. Not unkind. Just surprised. "You want equity in a company that doesn't exist yet?" "If it never exists, I lose nothing. If it does, I want equity." He'd agreed. He was so certain it would never matter. He was so certain the company would never actually take off, or maybe he was certain it would, and he was certain he could manage it. I'm still not sure which was worse. The memory dissolves as a champagne glass slips slightly in someone's hand and I catch it without thinking. "Nice reflexes," the man says, grinning. "Thank you," I say, and I smile back, and inside my chest, behind the smile, I am made of cold, quiet granite. "Table 9 wants sparkling water," Diane says, passing me without stopping. "And someone spilled near the gift table. Can you?" "Of course," I say. I go find the sparkling water. I mop up the spill. And while I'm kneeling near the gift table with a cloth in my hand, I hear Diane behind me, speaking to the wedding coordinator in a voice she thinks is private. "She means well," Diane says. "She's just not, well, she's not what we imagined for Marcus. But he's always been sentimental. She'll be fine. We'll find a role for her." "A role," the coordinator says. "Something supportive," Diane says. "She's good at supportive." I wring out the cloth. I stand up. I carry the cloth back to the service station. I check my phone. 3 messages from Daniel Osei, my attorney. I've worked with Daniel for 2 years. He does not make mistakes and he does not waste words. The first message says, "All documentation filed and verified." The second says, "Board has been notified. Awaiting your confirmation." The third says, "Ready when you are, Camille." I type back 2 words, "Not yet." I put my phone in my pocket and I pick up a fresh tray. The thing about waiting is that amateurs think it's passive. They think waiting is what you do when you have no other options. When you're weak. When you're hoping someone else will change the situation for you. But there is a kind of waiting that is the most active thing a person can do. It is the waiting of someone who has prepared every variable, confirmed every document, positioned every piece, and is now simply choosing the exact right moment to move. I had been in that kind of waiting for 11 days. Because 11 days ago, I found out what Marcus was planning. It wasn't dramatic. The discovery. It wasn't a screaming fight or a tearful confession. It was a Wednesday evening, and I was in the home office, our home office, in the house I owned, going through a folder of contracts because I always go through the contracts. Marcus calls it my trust issues. I call it due diligence. The document was in the wrong folder. Or maybe it was in exactly the right folder. I'm still not sure if he hid it carelessly or if some part of him wanted to be caught. Either way, I found it. It was a preliminary agreement. A property lease. In Marcus's name alone. For an apartment across the city. Starting in 6 weeks. I sat with that document for a long time. I read it 3 times. I looked at Marcus's signature at the bottom, the familiar loose loop of it, the way he always pressed too hard so the pen dug slightly into the paper beneath. Then I put the document back exactly where I found it. I went into the kitchen and I made tea. And I called Daniel. Now I'm walking past the dance floor with a tray of appetizers, and Marcus is standing near the bar with 2 of his friends, Owen and Raj, who I've met a dozen times and who have never once asked me a question about myself, and he's laughing at something. He looks good tonight. He always looks good. He has that quality some people have where ease looks like it grew inside them naturally, like it never cost him anything. He catches my eye across the room and raises his champagne glass slightly, like a toast. Like I'm staff he appreciates. I nod. I keep walking. And here's the fragment that surfaces then, uninvited and precise, the way the worst memories always are. I'm in the early days of the company, 6 months in, sitting across from our first serious investor. Marcus is beside me, but I'm the one talking. I'm the one who built the pitch. I'm the one who understands the margins, the projections, the market positioning. I can feel Marcus beside me like a decorative element, nodding at the right moments, laughing at the right times. The investor leans back and says, "I like this. Who runs operations?" And Marcus says, "We both do. It's a partnership." And I believed him. I pass a cluster of Diane's friends near the center table, 4 women, older, draped in jewelry, the kind of women who have spent decades being certain about things. I move around them quietly, but one of them steps back without looking and almost collides with my tray. "Oh," she says, and then, recovering, gives me a look that isn't quite an apology. "Do be careful." "My fault entirely," I say. She goes back to her conversation. I catch the end of it as I move away. Marcus has done so well for himself, hasn't he? Built this whole company from nothing. I breathe in. I breathe out. From nothing. I stay quiet. I check my watch. 31 minutes. Marcus's best friend Kieran finds me near the service station. Kieran has always made my skin feel like it's the wrong size. He has the specific kind of confidence that comes from having never had anything genuinely bad happen to him, and he wears it the way some men wear expensive cologne, applied too heavily, present in every room before he is. Camille. He says my name like he's reading it off a list. Kieran. He takes a champagne glass off my tray without asking, which is fine because I'm already setting it down, but somehow he makes the motion feel like a statement. "You really outdid yourself tonight," he says, looking around the room. "Everything looks great. You're very thorough." "Thank you." "It's a gift," he says. "Some people are just naturally organized. Logistical. You know, the support role." He means it as a compliment. That's the most disturbing thing. He means it as a genuine compliment, delivered with a smile, and he doesn't notice the word support role land on me because he has never considered that I might be the thing being supported around. "Must feel good," he says. "Knowing Marcus has someone like you behind him." I look at him. I let the silence stretch exactly 1 beat longer than is comfortable. "It does," I say. I smile. He smiles back, satisfied. What he doesn't know is that my name is on 70% of the company he's celebrating tonight. What he doesn't know is that the only reason Marcus's name appears anywhere on the company's paperwork is because I put it there, because 2 years ago I was in love and I believed in building things together, and that belief is the most expensive thing I have ever paid for. But I stay quiet. Because power doesn't argue. It waits. I'm refilling the water glasses at the head table when I hear it. I almost miss it. The music is loud enough that you have to be at the right angle, and I am at exactly the right angle, Because I set up this room and I know its acoustics, and I know that if you stand near the floral pillar at the east end of the head table, you can hear the conversation in the alcove behind the staging curtain as clearly as if you're standing inside it. Marcus is in the alcove. He doesn't know I know about the alcove. He doesn't know I know a lot of things. He's talking to someone, a man, lower voice, someone I haven't been able to identify yet. I set down the water pitcher very slowly and I listen. Once the deal clears, Marcus is saying. Once the acquisition is finalized. And she doesn't know about the acquisition, the other man says. She knows what I've told her. A pause. Brief laughter. Look, it's handled. Once everything transfers, I move her out. She's done her part. He pauses again, searching for the word, it's been useful. But it's time. Silence. Then the other man says, she's going to be devastated. And Marcus says, she'll be fine. She's practical. And there it is. That word again. Practical. The word Diane used like a consolation prize. The word Marcus uses now like a dismissal. Practical. I pick up the water pitcher. My hands are completely steady. This is the moment when the story changes. Not because of what he said, I already knew what he was planning, I'd known for 11 days, but because of the way he said it. She'll be fine. The total absence of hesitation. The lightness of it. I had prepared for anger, for guilt in his voice, for something that would tell me this cost him something. There was nothing. 11 days ago I found the document and I thought there was still a version of this where I was wrong. Where there was an explanation. Where the word practical was the wrong word and the right word was strong or capable or any of the 1,000 true things about me that he once said like he meant them. That's when it stopped being about love. Somewhere between the water pitcher and the curtained alcove and the word practical, something in me went very still and very clear, the way a lake goes still before you see your own reflection perfectly. And it became about timing. I walk back to the service station. I take out my phone. My fingers are calm. I send Daniel 3 words, 1 hour. Ready. He responds in 12 seconds, we're already here. I put my phone away. I pick up a fresh tray. And I do something I have not done once in this entire evening, I let myself look at the room the way I actually see it. The flowers, I chose every arrangement. The lighting, I briefed the venue coordinator twice to get the warmth exactly right. The menu, I tasted every course in a test session 6 weeks ago and sent notes. The seating chart, I spent 4 hours on it to make sure Marcus's college friends were clustered where they'd be happiest and Diane's sisters wouldn't be near the speakers. The ice sculpture, I argued for it when the venue coordinator said it was excessive, and I was right, it's beautiful. Every single element of this room exists because I built it. Not as the support role. Not as the practical, logistical one who stands behind the real person. As the architect of the entire evening. They are celebrating inside a monument to exactly what they've been dismissing all night. I almost find it funny. Almost. Excuse me, a voice says. I turn. It's the kind-eyed woman from table 6 again, the one who asked if I was the bride. She's standing slightly apart from a group, and there's something in her expression now, something more careful than before. I'm sorry to bother you, she says quietly. But I was talking to one of the staff, the actual catering staff, and they said your name was Camille. Camille Adeyemi. I hold her gaze. That's right. She blinks. I'm a journalist. Business section. I interviewed a woman named Camille Adeyemi 8 months ago. She was the founder of Meridian Group, I say. The woman stares at me. I'm her, I say simply. Something passes across the woman's face, confusion first, then a dawning that looks almost like alarm. But, the party, she says. I thought it is, I say. She looks at the tray in my hands. She looks at me. And then, very slowly, she begins to understand something that will make her article considerably more interesting by morning. I can see the moment it happens, the slight widening of her eyes, the quick blink. Should I, she starts. Stay where you are, I say, gently. Enjoy the champagne. This part won't take long. I walk away before she can respond. 22 minutes. Here's what I need you to understand about Marcus in the beginning. He wasn't cruel. That's the complicated thing, the thing that makes this harder in all the ways that don't have legal resolutions. In the beginning, he was the most attentive person I'd ever been close to. He noticed things, the specific tea I liked, the way I needed 10 minutes of quiet after a difficult call, the fact that I always read the last page of a book before I started it because I needed to know things would be okay before I invested in them. He used all of that. I know that now. But at the time, being noticed felt like being loved, and I had confused those two things for long enough that the confusion calcified into something I called a relationship. When he first proposed the company, it was over dinner in the apartment, and he spread papers across the table the way he always did when he was excited about something, slightly chaotic, slightly breathless, eyes very bright. He said, I need you on this, Cammy. Not just the money. I need your brain. You see things I don't see. You always have. And that was true. I do see things he doesn't see. I saw exactly how to build the business structure. I saw which investors to approach in which order. I saw the gap in the market we were targeting, and I could describe it precisely enough that people with serious money leaned forward in their chairs. What I didn't see clearly enough was that Marcus was also very good at being in a room. At moving through spaces where people with power congregated and making them feel comfortable. He was the face. He knew how to be the face. He shook hands and laughed and deflected and charmed, and slowly, over 18 months, the company that existed inside my spreadsheets and my late nights and my legal filings began to exist in people's minds as Marcus Reed's company. I signed the contracts. I held the equity. I let it happen because I thought we were the same thing. I flash back to it now while I'm standing near the catering station, 6 months ago, a gala, and a man I didn't recognize congratulating Marcus and Marcus accepting the congratulations without once mentioning me. I was 3 feet away. I was wearing a dress that cost me nothing because I had already stopped spending money on myself by then, redirecting everything back into the company, and I stood 3 feet away while someone praised the work of my hands and Marcus thanked them with the comfortable ease of a man who has never once doubted that the praise belongs to him. I didn't say anything that night. I should have. I should have seen it earlier. But I was still trying. Still hoping. Still wearing the shape of something I believed in even after it had hollowed out. Not anymore. 15 minutes. Diane catches me near the gift display and steers me aside with that practiced maternal authority she deploys like a tool. Camille, she says. The head table settings need to be refreshed before the toast. Can you manage that? Absolutely, I say. She looks at me for a moment, and there's something in her expression, not guilt. Diane does not carry guilt comfortably, but something adjacent to it. A flicker. You've done a lovely job tonight, she says, and she means it to be generous, which makes it worse. Truly. Marcus is lucky. To have someone so capable? I offer. She smiles. I was going to say dedicated. Of course you were, I say. The flicker again. Then it's gone, and she's patting my arm and moving back into the crowd. I watch her go. What she doesn't know, what none of them know, is that in 14 minutes, the company that bears her son's name will be under new management. What she doesn't know is that the attorney standing near the bar in the dark blazer is not a guest. What she doesn't know is that the three people she passed near the entrance, the ones she assumed were part of the event management team, are board members who received notification 3 days ago and confirmed their attendance tonight. What she doesn't know is that I have spent 11 days building the last wall of something I began building 2.5 years ago, and tonight the wall goes up and everything on the wrong side of it gets very, very cold. I go to refresh the head table settings. I do it perfectly. The toast is supposed to happen at 9. At 8:47, Marcus takes the microphone. He does it with the confidence of a man who has decided he owns the room, which is a thing he has never had to question because I have always made the room ready for him. He taps the mic once, gets the feedback squeal, laughs it off with an ease that makes people in the crowd smile, and then he pauses, that practiced, warm pause, and waits for the room to settle around him. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, he says. The crowd murmurs warmly. Someone whistles. Kieran raises a glass. I want to talk about partnership, Marcus says. Because that's what tonight is really about. I am standing near the back of the room. I am holding nothing. For the first time since I arrived, my hands are empty. I check my watch. 8:48. I've learned something in the last few years, Marcus says. About what it means to build something. About what it takes. He pauses meaningfully. He's good at meaningful pauses. And I want to say, in front of everyone here, that I could not have done any of it without the support, actually, I say. My voice carries. I knew it would. I know this room. The sound system is still live, Marcus hasn't finished his speech, and my voice finds the acoustics I mapped 3 weeks ago when I was standing in this exact spot briefing the venue coordinator. It fills the room with the same quiet authority that has closed investor meetings and ended contract disputes and told people twice my age exactly what position they were standing in. The crowd turns. Marcus turns. He sees me moving toward the front of the room, and for 1 second, one fractured, honest second, something crosses his face. Not guilt. Not exactly surprise. Something that might be recognition. Like a man who left a door unlocked and has just heard a key turning in it. Camille, he says into the mic, and he smiles the way you smile when you're not sure what's happening but you're committed to appearing like you are. Of course, do you want to say something? I do, I say. Since we're celebrating partnerships. I reach him. He offers me the microphone with that easy, gracious gesture. I take it. The room is quiet in a way rooms only get quiet when they sense something is about to change. You can feel it, that particular held breath that precedes a shift. I look out at 300 people in their finest clothes, with their champagne glasses, inside the room I built. I've heard a lot tonight, I say, about what Marcus has built. About his vision. His drive. I pause. Just briefly. I want to make sure we're all celebrating the right things. Someone laughs, assuming this is a toast. Assuming I'm building towards something warm. I let them assume. 2.5 years ago, I say, a company was founded. It was founded on a kitchen table, on a Tuesday night in October, with a business plan that took 3 months to write and a capital investment that came from one source. I pause. Me. The room shifts. Barely. But I feel it. Marcus's smile doesn't move. Cammy, he says, stepping slightly toward me. His voice is low, careful. The voice he uses when he's managing a situation. This isn't, the company is called Meridian Group, I say to the room. You may have heard of it. It cleared $40 million in revenue last year. It has been featured in 6 major publications, 2 of which referred to Marcus as the founder. I look at him then, directly, for the first time this evening. I have never corrected that. Until now. Camille. His voice is still controlled, but the smile is doing something complicated. Let's talk about this later. I'd like to talk about it now, I say pleasantly. While we're all here. Diane has appeared at the edge of the crowd near the head table. I can see her from where I'm standing. She looks like someone who has felt the ground shift but hasn't yet worked out what's under her feet. I want to show you something, I say. And that's when the screen comes on. The venue has a projector system I commissioned specifically for this event. Marcus knew about it. I told him we'd use it for a photo slideshow during dinner. Which we did. 35 photos of the two of us, of his family, of the company's early days. What he didn't know was that Daniel had remote access to the same system. The screen behind the stage, the beautiful, large, perfectly illuminated screen that I approved in the venue brief 6 weeks ago, fills with a document. It's the original incorporation filing for Meridian Group. Founder and majority shareholder, Camille A. Adeyemi. 70% equity. The room goes so quiet that I can hear the ice in the glasses settling. The loan Marcus mentioned to some of you, the one he used to start the company, was never a loan, I say. It was a capital investment, documented, signed, and filed. In exchange for 70% equity. I look at the screen, then back at the crowd. That document has been in existence for 2 years and 7 months. It has never changed. Camille. Marcus's voice is different now. The management tone is still there, but it's stretched thin, and underneath it there's something younger and less certain. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing both of us. I'm clarifying a narrative, I say. This isn't the time, it really is, I say. Because 11 days ago, I found out that you've been negotiating an acquisition deal for Meridian Group. Without my knowledge. Without my authorization. I look at him. As majority shareholder, I need to authorize any acquisition deal. You know that. Something in his face collapses. Not all at once. In stages. Like a building being deconstructed rather than demolished. The acquisition, I say, is invalid. You don't have, he starts. I have 70%, I say. Silence. I also have this. The screen changes. A second document. The preliminary acquisition agreement he'd been negotiating, the one I found in the wrong folder 11 days ago. At the bottom, where the required shareholder authorization should appear, the signature line is blank. 300 people look at a blank signature line. There is no authorized acquisition, I say. There is also no authorized removal of operating accounts. There is no authorized transfer of company assets. All of which were in progress as of this morning. I look at Marcus. Because you believed I didn't know. His jaw tightens. Camille, I can explain, you told someone tonight, I say, that once the deal cleared, you'd move me out. That I'd done my part. The room absorbs this. That I was temporary. The room absorbs this differently. I watch it move through the crowd, the shift in posture, the turning of faces toward Marcus, the very specific silence of people recalibrating what they're looking at. Marcus opens his mouth. He closes it. For the first time since I've known him, he doesn't know where to put his ease. The recording, I say, if you'd like to hear it, is available. I provided a copy to my attorney. I pause. And to the journalist from the business section of the Chronicle who is, I believe, standing near table 6. The kind-eyed woman raises her hand very slightly. Then lowers it. Kieran, from somewhere in the crowd, says, "What the," and then stops. Diane makes a sound. I can't see her face from here, but I know the sound. It is the sound of someone whose certainty has just been structurally compromised. I look at Marcus. We are 3 feet apart. I have known this man for 4 years. I have loved him for 3 of them and grieved him for the last 11 days, and I am looking at him now the way you look at something you've finally finished carrying, with the specific exhaustion of someone who set down a weight they forgot wasn't theirs to hold. You said I was temporary, I say, and my voice is quiet enough now that only he and the first 3 rows can hear it clearly. He says nothing. You were right, I say. And then, because Daniel is already moving from the bar, because the 3 board members near the entrance are already moving, because everything I prepared is already in motion, I hand the microphone back to him. I take a step back. As majority owner of Meridian Group, I say, calmly, to the room, I am exercising my shareholder rights, effective tonight, to remove Marcus Reed from his operating position within the company. I turn toward Daniel. Mr. Osei. Daniel reaches the stage in the particular way of someone who has been ready for exactly this moment. He opens the document folder he's been carrying and places it on the table beside the mic stand. Mr. Reed, Daniel says, in the pleasant, professional tone of someone who has done things like this many times and finds them neither dramatic nor difficult, these are the termination documents and asset transfer notices. Your company credit cards and account access have been suspended as of 8 o'clock tonight. If you have any questions, my team is available Monday morning. Marcus stares at the documents. You can't, he starts. She can, Daniel says, simply. Someone in the crowd says, oh my God, in a voice that's half whispered, half entirely audible. Marcus turns to me. And now the ease is completely gone and what's underneath it is something rawer than I expected, not guilt, still not guilt, but something almost like disbelief, the disbelief of a man who has never once genuinely considered that the foundation might move beneath him. Camille. His voice is low, urgent. Everything I did, we were building towards something. You know that. I was protecting the company, from me? I say. A pause. I am the company, I say. His mouth works. He is searching for the version of this where he finds his footing, the way he always does, the way ease has always rescued him. He is searching for the charming pivot, the disarming laugh, the way to make a room feel like things are under control. He doesn't find it. Because I built this room. I know exactly where every exit is. And I'm not using any of them. Marcus. Diane's voice cuts through the quiet, sharp, slightly desperate, the voice of a woman who has just realized she has been celebrating something she did not understand. She's pushing through the crowd toward the stage. Marcus, what is happening? Diane. He turns to his mother, and there's something almost childlike in it, the reflex to look to her. And I would feel something for it if I weren't still standing in the room where she snapped her fingers at me like I was a golden retriever. She can't do this, Diane says, reaching the stage, looking at Daniel, looking at me, looking at the screen that still displays the documents. She can't just, she can, Daniel says again, with the same pleasant finality. She signed contracts, Diane starts. She is the majority shareholder of the company, Daniel says. The contracts support her position. Entirely. Diane looks at me. For the first time in 3 years of knowing this woman, she looks at me the way you look at someone whose full dimensions you have suddenly been forced to take in. Not as practical girl. Not as logistical support. Not as the one who keeps busy. She looks at me the way you look at the person who built the room you're standing in. You planned this, she says. I prepared for this, I say. There's a difference. She opens her mouth. She closes it. Behind her, Kieran has his phone out. He's not filming. He's staring at his screen with an expression I can't read from here, but I can guess, he'll have seen the notification from the company's board communication system. The one that went out to all board-level contacts at 8 o'clock confirming the ownership transition. He'll be trying to work out how long this has been in motion. He'll be counting backward through dinners and lunches and conversations and trying to identify the moment he should have seen it coming. He won't find it. I was very careful. 2 of the board members have reached the stage now. They are shaking Daniel's hand. One of them, a woman named Patricia who joined the board 14 months ago and who has always known exactly who I was, because I recruited her, looks at me briefly and nods once. That nod is all the confirmation I need. The 3rd board member stays near the entrance. He's there in case Marcus decides to leave abruptly. He won't make a scene. He'll simply be present, which is its own kind of pressure. Marcus is still standing at center stage with the termination documents in front of him and 300 people watching. He has the look of a man who is very rapidly running through every option available to him and finding each one closed. He turns to me again. "Why tonight?" he says, and it's the most honest question he's asked all evening. "Why like this?" I look at him. "You made me serve drinks at my own engagement party," I say. "I thought it was appropriate." He flinches. "It's small but I see it." "Camille, the documents need to be signed before midnight," Daniel says quietly. "We can move this somewhere private if you prefer, but the transition stands regardless." Marcus looks at the documents for a long time. The room is absolutely silent. Then he picks up the pen. He signs. And somewhere in the crowd, someone exhales, and it moves through the room like a small wave, a collective release of breath, 300 people letting go of something they'd all been holding since I first walked to that microphone. Patricia reaches out and takes the documents. She passes them to Daniel. Daniel slides them into his folder. Marcus sets the pen down. He doesn't look at me again. He steps off the stage, and the crowd parts for him, not respectfully, the way it parts for someone important, but in the uncertain, apologetic way it parts for someone who has abruptly become unfamiliar. Kieran falls into step beside him, his hand on Marcus's arm, steering him toward the exit, and Marcus lets himself be steered, and that, the way he lets it happen, tells me everything I need to know about the parts of him I never fully understood. He was always someone who needed to be steered. I had just spent 3 years believing the person doing the steering was invisible. Diane watches her son leave. Then she turns back to me, and now her face is something different, something between anger and a kind of stripped-down calculation, the look of a woman deciding very quickly where her next firm ground is. "I hope you're proud of yourself," she says. "I'm satisfied," I say. "That'll do." She leaves. The room is still quiet. I look out at 300 people in evening clothes, with champagne glasses and uneaten desserts and expressions ranging from stunned to fascinated to something approaching awe. I see the journalist from the business section typing rapidly into her phone with her champagne glass balanced in her other hand. I see one of Marcus's college friends, a man named Theo who once told me I had a very practical energy, standing very still with his mouth slightly open. I see the woman in the red dress who told me the salmon was dry looking at me like she's trying to remember if she was ever rude to me, which she absolutely was, and finding that memory arriving with considerable discomfort. I look at all of them. "I apologize for the interruption," I say into the stillness. "I'll let you enjoy the rest of the evening." I step off the stage. And the room, slowly, like a tide reversing, begins to find its breath again. The next 90 minutes are a particular kind of controlled chaos that I watch from a calm distance the way you watch weather through glass. Marcus's credit cards are declined at the valet station. He discovers this when he tries to tip the attendant, and I know this because the attendant, a young man named Jerome, comes to find Daniel with the card still in his hand, uncertain what to do. Daniel handles it. Marcus's access to the company's operating system is already suspended. The company car, technically a company asset, is re-registered tonight, which Marcus will discover in the morning when the management company contacts him. These are the clean, legal, structural consequences of what I set in motion 11 days ago. They are not revenge. They are accounting. Kieran calls me twice. I watch his name on my screen and I don't answer. He'll leave a voicemail that I will listen to once and delete. He'll want to explain that he didn't know, that Marcus misled him too, that if he'd understood the real ownership structure he would have behaved differently. He might even believe it. It doesn't matter either way. Patricia so finds me near the window while I'm standing alone for the first time all evening, looking out at the city lights. That was beautifully managed, she says. It took longer than it should have, I say. The best things usually do. She stands beside me. The board is fully aligned. Monday's announcement is prepared. We can position this however you want, quiet transition or public narrative. Public, I say, without hesitating. The story's already out. She nods, unsurprised. The journalist? She'll write what she saw. It'll be more credible than anything we put out. Patricia is quiet for a moment. Then she says, "You know what I noticed tonight?" "What?" "You served every table," she says. "You cleaned a spill. You fetched sparkling water. You did all of it with complete composure." "I knew what I was doing," I say. "That's what I mean," she says. She squeezes my arm once, differently from how Diane did it. This is the squeeze of someone who sees you correctly, and she goes to find Daniel. I stay at the window. And here is the last memory shard, the one I've been holding back all evening because it's the one that costs me something. It's from the beginning, from before the company, before the documents, before the late nights became about something other than possibility. We're in the kitchen again, but it's a different night, earlier, before the lone conversation, before any of it. He's made dinner, which he did sometimes, a specific pasta with too much garlic because he always slightly overdid the garlic, and we're eating across from each other and he's telling me about something that happened at work, something that frustrated him, and I'm listening the way I listen to things that matter, fully, leaning in. And he stops mid-sentence and looks at me. "What?" I say. "Nothing," he says. He shakes his head slightly. "I just think you're extraordinary." I believed him. For a long time I believed him. The thing about grief is that it doesn't wait for a convenient moment. It finds you at windows. It finds you in the quiet after the noise, with the city laid out below you and everything you worked for finally secured, and it says, "Yes, but look what else you paid." I breathe through it. I breathe through it the way I breathe through all of it, with the full knowledge that what I'm feeling is real and true and also not the final word on what this evening means. I turn away from the window. I go back to work. By 11 o'clock, the guests have begun to leave in gradual waves. The catering team is clearing tables. The venue staff are folding napkins. The ice sculpture of two intertwined rings is still standing in the corner, slowly losing its definition in the warmth of the room, the rings melting slightly together at their edges, becoming something less distinct. I watch them go, the guests, the same people who snapped fingers and talked through me and stood in the room I built and credited the person I built it with. They leave in clusters, speaking quietly to each other, pulling coats on, avoiding my eye in the way of people who are privately recalculating. Some of them will have opinions about what I did tonight, that it was dramatic, that it was calculated, that I could have handled it differently. They're entitled to those opinions. They don't change what's in the folder Daniel is carrying. Theo, the college friend who told me I had a practical energy, stops on his way to the door. "Camille," he says. I look at him. I didn't know," he says. "About the company." "I didn't realize you were," he stops. Starts again. "I'm sorry if I ever," he stops again. "Thank you, Theo," I say. He nods. He leaves. The journalist is the last guest still in the room. She's been discreet about it, sitting at a corner table with a coffee that someone brought her, writing on her phone, occasionally looking up to observe the clearing process. When she sees me moving through the room, she stands. "Ms. Adeyemi," she says. "Call me Camille." Camille. She has her phone out, recording mode, I notice, which she shows me openly. I want to make sure I have this right for the article. The company, Meridian Group, was funded by you. Founded by you. And you have held 70% equity since inception. Correct, I say. And Marcus Reed's role was operational leadership. Business development. He was good at those things. I pause. He was genuinely talented at those things. That should be in the article. She blinks. She clearly expected something sharper. You want me to say that? I want you to be accurate, I say. He had a real role. He did real work. The story isn't that he contributed nothing. The story is what he was planning to do with something that was never fully his. She types something. Then she looks up. Can I ask you one more thing? Off the record if you prefer. Ask. Did you love him? The room is very quiet now. The catering team has moved to the far end. The music is off. The ice sculpture makes small, quiet sounds as it continues its slow dissolution. Yes, I say. For a while. She nods. She stops the recording. I'm sorry, she says, and she means it, I can tell the difference now. Don't be, I say. I'm not. I go find Daniel. He's near the entrance, packing the last of the documents, talking quietly on his phone. When he sees me he wraps up the call and holds up the folder. Everything is filed, he says. The board announcement goes out Monday morning. The acquisition negotiation, the unauthorized one, has been formally invalidated. The other party has been notified. He pauses. They weren't pleased. I imagine not. They'll likely renegotiate, he says. On your terms. Yes, I say. They will. He hands me the folder. I take it. Good work tonight, he says. Good work for 11 days, I say. He smiles. He leaves. I stand in the emptying room, folder in my hands, and I look at what's left. The flowers are still beautiful. They'll last another 3 days, I know because I asked. The lighting is still warm. The tables are half cleared, the napkins folded, the glasses collected. The decorations, the engagement party decorations, are still mostly in place. The banner above the entrance still says what it said when the evening began. I walk to the venue coordinator, who is standing near the service door with a clipboard, supervising the team. The banner, I say. Can we change it? He looks up from the clipboard. Change it to what? I think for a moment. I think about the word launch. About what it means to launch something, the preparation, the positioning, the weight, the exact right moment of release. The contained energy of something that has been ready for long enough that readiness has become a kind of peace. Launch celebration, I say. Meridian Group. New chapter. He looks at me for a moment. Then he nods. We can have it up in 20 minutes, he says. Perfect, I say. I walk